All right, guys, let's get started with 5.6% increase or decrease. So here's the type of problem we may see. The FAA now figures the average checked bag to weigh 24 pounds. This is up from a previous figure of 12 pounds. Find the amount of increase in the percent of increase to the nearest whole percent. So yeah, this is a good question. You guys see if you can figure this one out, okay? And this one, some of you guys may think this is a little bit too easy, but try it out and see if you can figure out a good process for yourself in finding a percent increase. We definitely see it's an increase because it was 12 pounds, now it's 24, so it definitely increased. Yeah, see if you can figure out what that increase is as a percent, all right? 30 seconds, go. For percent change, there's two ways you could do it, and it's similar to what we just barely saw with applications of percents, right? Like with taxes, commissions, discounts, and markups, is you can either figure out the change as an amount in the beginning, like you see in this first method, okay, or you can figure out the amount of change at the end, which is the second method right here. Now, yeah, if for the second method right here, if you ever end up with something negative, then it's always a decrease. If you end up with something positive, then it's an increase, okay? Which is how you would tell. But it shouldn't be that hard to tell if it's an increase or decrease, you guys. Just like we saw in that last one where it used to be, or it was, in previous year, or the previous year, was 12 pounds, and then they found that check bags are now 24 pounds. Hopefully that's very obvious that that's an increase in value. So for the homework, you may have to not only figure out the amount of change or the percent change, but also if it's an increase or decrease. But if you understand which one they started with and which one they end with, hopefully it'll make sense. Okay, so in this problem, again, we see that it previous figure, or originally it was 12 pounds, and now it's showing at 24 pounds. So now isn't always an original figure or an original amount. Again, in this case, the original amount would have been something previous. It's the one that you started with, or make sure I'm wording that right. It's the one farthest back in time, I guess. That seems like it's pretty good. So in this one, I mean, it already said that it's an increase. So we're just trying to figure out the percent, but in some cases you'll have to figure out what the increase is. So I said would show both ways, all right? Now, the first way is where we take the amount of change and divide that by the original and multiply that by 100. And this will tell us the percent as the percent of change, in this case, increase. Now, to find the amount of change, you're just going to take the big number. It doesn't matter if it's the original or not. In this case, it's 24. You just take that and subtract the small number, which in this case is 12. Then we divide it by how much it was originally, which in this case is 12 pounds. So that is the denominator in this case. So this sets up the formula or equation that we can solve, right? So I can take my fraction, 24 minus 12. If you use order of operations, that's 12. Divide that by 12, it's just 1 times 100, which is 100, okay? So it shows it's a 100% increase in this case. Now, again, that was the first method that we showed in that last slide. The other way is to use a percent proportion out of 100. This is going to equal, so we take the new value, which is 24, and divide it by the old value, which was 12. And we're looking for the percent that is of 12, okay? Now, whatever we get from this x, we're going to have to subtract 100. So even though this may show up as 200, which it will, we need to subtract 100%, okay? So on this one, Yeah, we're going to cross multiply. I got 12x equals 100 times 24 is 2,400. Divide both sides by 12. And again, we're going to see this as 200. But again, it's not saying that it's a 200% change. This would be like saying that it's 200% of the original. So I need to subtract 100, which is going to tell me how much it changed, which is 100%. So we get the same answer either way using both methods. You get to choose which one you like the best. Now I prefer this first one, but maybe we'll just alternate between these two so you can get a feel for which one you like the most and kind of compare it to the other method as well. But again, the first method, it takes the change in the beginning, whereas the second method here in blue takes the amount of change at the end. So identify as an increase or decrease, then find the percent of increase or decrease. If necessary, round to the nearest tenth of a percent. Now this one's very specific on which one is the original, which one's new, right? And we can see the original was 140 and the new one is 80, which means it went down, right? Which is a decrease. So right off the bat, we know that it's a decrease. And now we'll figure out the amount of change. I'll use the first method on this first one. So again, we're going to take the difference, multiply it, divide it rather by the original, and multiply that by 100. So the big number here is 140, small number, 80, and we'll divide it by the original, always divide it by the original, which is 140 in this case. So in my calculator, I take 140 minus 80, which should be 60. So it's a change of 60, right? It decreased by 60. Now I'll divide that by 140, which gives me a pretty ugly decimal there. Let's multiply that by 100. And that gives me 42. It's a pretty big decimal there. 42.857. That's all I need for this decimal. Let's write it out here. 42.857. And yeah, this is a percent. But we only want this rounded to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to look at the 8. The number to the right is 5 or more, so I'm going to add 1 to the 8, making this a 42.9% increase. I'm sorry, decrease. Yeah, it was a decrease from the beginning there. Sorry, find the amount of tax and the tax rate. Round to the nearest hundredth of a percent. Okay, so we got the cost of the item at $144 and the selling price at $154.69. Why don't you guys take a minute and see if you can find the amount of tax and the tax rate for this problem, all right? 1 minute, go. All right, guys, hopefully that was enough time. Again, if you're still working, just finish up. Now, on an off note, we can see that the cost of the item is $144, but it's selling for $154.69. Now, if it asks for an increase or decrease, we could see that that is a clear increase in the price. So, I mean, yeah, taxes, of course, are an increase. But even if without that information, we should be able to know that it's an increase. So, we need to figure out the amount of the tax. Now, the amount, we're talking about the dollar amount of the tax. The tax rate is the percent. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the big number, $154.69, and subtract the small one, $144. And we can see that the tax amount, you got 69 cents there and $10. So that is the amount of tax, just to start out with. And actually at this point we could put together a percent proportion if we wanted to. But you could solve it with the percent of change proportion as well, like we had shown, which would be like this. Okay, so we got it's out of 100. Again, we see that it's let's see, the selling price $154.69, where the original was $144. Now, this is not using the tax, but if you wanted to, you could say, well, the tax is $10.69, so I would put that where this green number is, and then solve for the x, the percent, which is going to work the same, okay? But just for the sake of keeping this with the percent change proportion, because we just did the first method, so this is the second method. We're going to use this one, okay? So in solving this proportion, I'd have 144x equals 100 times 154.69 is, well, let me make sure I got that, yeah. 15,469. Seems a little big. Oh no, that should work. Okay. 144x equals 15,469, and then divide both sides by 144. Now again, with the percent change proportion, this is just telling me the percent that 154.69 is of 144, not the percent increase. So 15,469 divided by 144. 107.42 rounded. And that's rounded to the nearest. That's percent, you guys. Now remember, for this one, we still need to subtract 100 off of that, right? So that ends up being 7.42%. Yeah, and that's, again, already rounded to the nearest hundredth. So it's a 7.42% tax on the original. So if we went back to the percent proportion, and again, if I, instead of putting 154 there, if I put $10.69 there, I should have got the same thing. So just checking my calculator. 10 point. This is fish method, by the way. Not that you have to use it. Yeah, it shows the same value. 7.4236. It still rounds to 7.42% tax. In-state tuition at a local college was $3,252 last year. This year, the tuition will be $5,293. What is the percent increase of tuition? That seems like a lot of percent increase. Hopefully that's never happened, but I know it's gotten pretty expensive. Okay, well, we'll use the first method on this one. What's the percent increase, right? So we're going to take the change divided by the original, multiplied by 100, and this will tell us the percent increase. And this one already said that it's a percent increase, so we don't need to figure out if it's an increase or decrease. So for this method, I just take the big number, which in this case is 5,293, subtract the smaller one, 3,252, and divide it by the original. Well, it was 3,252, whereas this year, or now, it's 5,293. So we got to go to last year's value, which would have been, in comparison between the two, the original. So this sets up what I can type into my calculator, right? 5293 minus 3252, and I've already pushed the fraction button there, divided by 3252, get out of the fraction and multiply that by 100, and this will tell me the percent right away. We'll round this to the nearest hundredth as well, because it gave me 62.7613 and some change. But I'm only worried about the nearest hundredth because that's where I said I would round it. So 62.76, because this one there is going to keep the 6 as 6. So that's a 62.76% increase. It's pretty big. All right, well, this is an application of, I guess, percent increases. We'll do this problem. We'll skip the next one because it's related. But UONE, this is a stock, and you guys can check this on what is this from? Yahoo Finance. There it is. So I had a big percent increase on, that was the 16th of June, so last month. What was the percent increase based on the open and closing value? So we're not even looking at the highs and lows. In fact, we don't even need the chart. And those of you that are familiar with stocks, you know, it goes up and down inside this thing. Just, we're concerned with, in this case, the open value and also the closing value, all right? What the heck? Want to use the first method just because it seems more clear, right? I want to figure out the amount of change. Now, the open and close, as you see in that box there, that's in dollars. So I'm going to take that second method. Big minus small divided by the original times 100. And this will tell me the percent change. And we can see that it opened at $6.77, but closed at $27.19. So that's an increase just to start out with. And I'm going to take the big number, $27.19, and subtract the small number, $6.77. But the original would have been what it opened at, right? That's the number farthest back in time for this particular situation at $6.77. So I'm looking at a fraction here. I got 27.19, but I'll subtract 677. We'll divide this by 677, but we'll multiply this by 100. This will tell me the percent change of this stock on the 16th of June, 2020. Well, that's 301 point, I'll round to the nearest tenth for this one, 0.6. Now, that's a pretty big percent increase, you guys, for a stock. You don't see a lot of stocks increase by that much, especially in one day. But it is something you may want to think about, because if a stock like this goes up 301.6%, let's say that I put in $1 at the opening of this day, the 16th of June, and then I sold at the very end of the close of the day at $27.19. Well, how much would my dollar have been worth? And then you can think about that proportionally. Well, what if you put in $100 or $2,000 or $10,000? I mean, how much money would that have grown into? And you can see the attraction that the stock market produces, right?